You're listening to The Other 50%, a history of Hollywood. This is Julie Harris Walker. This is a bonus episode. This is Ida Lee Henderson's Tales from the Trenches, where she tells us stories from when she worked on Rudy, Made in America, and told another story about a different guy in power who walked around calling someone the C word. Guys, seriously, you gotta stop. Because you know what? The women remember, and they tell everybody they know, and even 10, 15, 20 years later, they're still going to talk about it. So really, if one thing comes out of this podcast, it's don't call women the C word. Okay, that's enough from me. Now listen to Ida Lee.
Do you have any stories from productions?
Well, I have some that are kind of like why it's kind of fun to be a production accountant.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
The one story that I was thinking about was there was a production, and they just ran into some difficulties. Kind of, it got huge and a little bit unwieldy, and so the studio had sent me to just help. It was a really great, uber competent accountant. It was just kind of more work than that person could. She couldn't manage all the costs and cost reporting and manage some of the stuff that was happening with purchase orders not being done and departments who weren't being compliant. So they asked me to go help. And I did. And one of the departments that they'd had turnover was the the transportation coordinator had, I think they were on their third. And so there were all these vehicles. They were being charged for vehicles that had supposedly been returned, and it was just a mess. The whole billing for all of the vehicles was kind of a mess. So I tried to deal with it over the phone. I was unsuccessful. So I had gotten the two representatives from these two different transportation vehicle providers to come into the office, and we were sitting down and we were going through every single PO, every single rental agreement, trying to figure out what we still had on the production and what had been returned. And it was going so slowly. It was like slogging through mud.
Painful.
It was painful. Well, this particular film, one of the stars was Anthony Hopkins, and I happened to look up and I saw him walking down the hallway. So I stood up, and he's one of the nicest people in the world, and he waved. So I stood up and I popped my head in the hallway and I said, "Hi, Tony, how are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm doing great. I was just in with the editor, and they've cut this sequence together, and it was really brilliant, and I'm very excited." And I said, "Well, do you have a minute? We've got some of the people who provide some of the equipment for us are here. Would you have just a moment to say hello?" And he said, "Of course I would." So he came in and, just chatted and schmoozed as no one but Anthony Hopkins can do. He's just like oozes charm. And, and off he went, and he left. And from that moment, the meeting was done in about 30 minutes. And basically all I heard was yes. Everything I wanted, I got.
That is star power.
Yes. It was brilliant.
And that was the most exciting day of their lives.
It was.
They're still telling that story.
I bet. It was very sweet. And of course I'm fair and I was right. I didn't rip anybody off or anything. It was all good. But it just certainly made the negotiations go ever so much smoother.
It helps for sure.
And then the other story that was one of my favorite moments in being a production accountant, or experiences of being a production accountant, is I was lucky enough to work on Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. And the ape makeup for that was designed by Rick Baker, who is just a genius. I mean, he's one of the most amazing creative artists I have ever had the pleasure to be around. And he was so excited to do the film because the original Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston is part of what had inspired him to pursue a career in creature and creative makeup. So he just couldn't wait.
Oh, and then he got to do
the apes, right? His whole life since he'd been a kid, he'd been thinking about how he would do the apes if he got to do them, right?
Oh, and now
yeah, it was just the coolest. And so it was really a passion project for him. And so we would get in budgets for what it was going to cost to do all of the makeup effects. And, it would be too high, for example. So the producers would call and say, "Oh, it was too high." And then we'd get another one in. It would be like really too low. I would say, "This can't work for him. He's not going to make any money. This is too low." Mm-hmm. And so finally I said, "Can I come over there, you guys, and work with your bookkeeper, and let's let's come up with a system where, okay, these are the static costs. No matter what, these costs are going to be the same. The cost for all your labor and this and that. And then this part will be that with which we can be creative and either enhance or reduce depending on the script. Could we just kind of, maybe if we attack it that way, it'll be more consistent. They said yes, I could come over and work with them, and they were appreciative of any support that I could give, and his bookkeeper was delightful and really pleasant to work with. So what they did when I got there was they took me through the entire process, like how they start out, where they bring the actors to mold to make the molds of their faces and arms and legs, and then what they would do with the mold guys, and then how they would create prosthetic rubber pieces from which they would work to do, and all the way through it to literally those 8 masks. Every single hair on those 8 masks was hand punched by this team of women who were so great. They sat in these like kind of bar stools, and they had books on tape. So they had headphones in, and they just stitched hair after hair after hair after hair, listening to books on tapes. And it was just amazing craftsmanship and beautiful work. And so I got to walk through this entire process so that when we sat down to talk about, how to charge it, I understood what was what. And it was just, I loved it. It was really one of those like movie making moments where you got to see, the artists at work and how they create the magic.
Yeah, the magic. I was just gonna say.
Yes, and then his work was just over the top. I mean, those masks. I'm telling you, when those gorillas walked onto the set, your fight or flight mechanism would kick in. They looked so real.
Oh my God.
Even right there close up, not only did they look amazing on screen, of course, but standing next to them, if you turned and saw that gorilla, your immediate response was fear. You had to remind yourself that was your buddy inside there.
Oh my God. And to be able to, like, one of my favorite things is for the guy watching his dream come true.
Oh, yes.
Like being there for that moment.
And and the thing was, he's and I mean, this was my only interaction with him. I probably it was entirely professional, and only in meetings or at certain gatherings did I actually see Rick. But his whole being would light up. When he would sit down and be showing the producers how he was going to create this character, or he would come in with 3 or 4 different sketches of how he was, interpreting this character so that they could hone in on how they wanted the makeup to look. It was just an honor to see that glee in his heart and the spark of creativity, and it was delightful. I mean, I'm so privileged that I got to be in his presence. Yeah.
That's an incredible time.
Yeah.
Did he win the Oscar for that?
Okay, sidebar. I did look it up, and he did not win the Oscar that year for Planet of the Apes. He did win it for How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and has actually won 7 Oscars altogether.
And then the other one I was thinking about is like what budgeting is a budgeting one where I got to do one of the movies I most enjoy watching that I got to work on is the film Rudy. And
You worked on Rudy! That's everybody's favorite movie.
And it was quite a challenging project. It was just one of those projects that it sort of sat in limbo for the longest time, and right up to the minute we left to film it, it just barely got greenlit. And when we were doing the final budgeting, trying to get it greenlit, we were running up against fall in New England, and one of the sequences is where Rudy first walks onto the campus of Notre Dame, and it's in beautiful fall foliage.
Yeah.
And so we had the initials LD, which stood for leaf dependent, all through the budget because we were trying to emphasize to the studio that we could only hold to this budget if the leaves didn't fall before we got a chance to shoot it.
Yeah.
And so it did get greenlit, and we had 3 weeks to finish prep so that we could shoot that scene to get Rudy walking onto the campus with all that beautiful, beautiful fall foliage. And again, an amazing team of professionals, and they did it. We prepped that movie in just for the listeners, a normal prep time for a movie of that size would be anywhere from 4 months, 6 months. We although there had been some pre-prep, really we got everything together in about 3 weeks.
That's unheard of.
And they did a brilliant job. And one of the things we lucked out with is that apparently at Notre Dame, where we filmed a lot of the movie, they have like a warehouse where over all these years that Notre Dame has been there, like when they replace desks, they just stick stuff in the warehouse, and so almost all of our set dressing, not all of it, but a good portion of our set dressing came directly from their warehouse, because every period you could imagine going back to probably the 20s
God.
was in their warehouse.
How great.
I
It was
know.
so authentic.
Yeah, it was indeed.
And then did they charge you for it? Or were they
No.
like, oh, take the desk?
No, not that I recall. I don't think so. The production designer probably would remember that better than I do, but I don't think so. I think they just basically opened the door and said, just put it back when you're done.
That is one of those blessed projects that
Yes.
just
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, it was. And that's another one where Sean Astin, who was the lead of that film, he's just so cute, and he was so happy to be doing that role, and he loved the character, and he loved being there. And so every day when he would walk onto the set, it was just like, he was another one who just lit up the room because he was just so happy to be there.
He was the Rudy of Rudy.
He was, and he had just gotten married, and he was so happy in his personal life, and he just loved saying, "Oh, have you met my wife? Have you met my wife?"
Oh,
it was
so
just
cute.
Yeah, it was one of those really heartwarming experiences. And the real Rudy was with us for the entire production of the film. Yeah, and so we had and he was, we always joke that practically from the moment it happened, as soon as he graduated Notre Dame, until the movie got made, which I want to say Rudy was probably 40-ish maybe when the film got made. That entire time he'd been trying to get that movie made.
Oh my God.
So for him, again, it was a dream come true, that this story that he so wanted to share with the world about how, somebody who never had a chance made a chance just out of tenacity and stick-to-itiveness. He actually then got a movie made about it. So his tenacity and stick-to-itiveness worked again. Yeah. So
he just knows he can make his dreams come true.
He indeed, and he
has all the evidence.
He can't put a time frame on it, but he can make it happen. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think he's still on the National Speakers Tour. I mean, he inspires people every day. Yeah,
and to have the wherewithal to know the importance of his own story, and to be able to tell it without being like, "Oh, check out what I did." It's so humble but so important at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Okay, so then Ida Lee told me her stories, which were less happy but still interesting.
We were on location in San Francisco. It had been, tough. It wasn't easy for anybody. We were working really long days, and the Teamster captain, who was about a 6'5" Samoan, basically was refusing to do his petty cash, but he wanted cash, and he was just, kind of trying to power over me to get it done. And there was someone in the room. Thankfully there was one other person in the room. He came into accounting, and he was also very angry. I found out later he had injured himself that day, so he was in pain. I have to give that caveat because his behavior will be unbelievable to you.
Okay.
So
it's nice of you to give me that out.
So first he started just yelling, and I just said, "Listen, I'm happy to give you petty cash. What I need are receipts and a petty cash envelope that I can reimburse. That's what I need, and then I'd be happy to do that." And but I need it. And just screaming and hollering. And I said, "Well, then you need to go to the production manager. There's other ways they can help you, but this is what I need. It's like 11 o'clock at night. There's nothing I can do. This is just the way it is." And he kept getting angrier and angrier. And again, I am Irish, and I come from a strong family, and I grew up with two big brothers. So he's pushing verbally. And he's walking closer to me, and I'm now trapped. I'm sort of like, there's a table and two walls on either side of me. I'm like in a U, and he's coming through the only exit. He's coming at me, walking towards me with this intense anger and screaming. And I'm still saying no, which is my job, and he pushed me. He shoved me.
No.
He did. He shoved me, pushed my shoulder and shoved me back. But I was so close to the wall. Now, this is where it's funny in a way, because I had big brothers, right? And mine just triggered into what a person does.
And you're a tall woman.
And I'm tall, but he was like 6'5", and I'm 5'9", but he was 6'5". So he shoves me. I fell back, caught myself on the wall. He shoved me, and then he turned. So now his back is to me. I shoves me against the wall. I push off the wall and take my foot and push his ass away from me.
Oh my God.
Because I had big brothers, and
Yes.
it just was instinctive, right, to protect myself. Afterwards, I thought, are you fucking nuts?
That guy could have killed you.
He could have killed you. But in the moment, your adrenaline is kicked in, and
Yeah.
I'd just been sort of, physically accosted, and I fought back.
Things
And
that shouldn't happen at the office.
no, should not happen at the office. And and then the next, obviously, word got out, and the producers called me in, and we had just a few weeks to finish, and it was like, what do you want to do? But I have to say, honestly, I did feel pressured to do nothing.
Right. What can we do so that you don't sue us and shut down this production?
Or that we don't have to fire him, because that would have really been all I wanted, was just to never see him again, to have him go away. But
God.
no, I had to suck it up, and he was contrite. I will give him that. He apologized, he acknowledged that he had been in pain. I heard about the injury, and we sort of agreed to just stay out of each other's way till we could get through it. But I have to say, even years later, I saw him, and my stomach tightened.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he ever bring you a petty cash envelope?
Yeah. Julie, one thing you'll learn about me, I always get my way.
So you won.
I did.
Really?
I don't take no for an answer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was really unpleasant.
Terrible.
Yeah. But again, stuff like that happens in production. We're all
it's the Wild West.
overstressed, and and I didn't realize. I mean, apparently, some a metal rod had gone through his calf.
Oh God.
Yeah, he was really in pain, but I didn't know it, and he didn't walk in the room saying, "Listen, I was injured today. I just need this because."
No,
he
took it
just
out
came
on
in. Because I think sometimes, there are people who have learned that if they turn on the bully mode, they will just get what they want.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut.
Right.
And that's what he did. He walked in bully mode. He's a big guy. Nobody says no to him when he's in bully mode. And then when I did say no to him, that combined with the fact that he was in pain sent him over the edge. Yeah. So I just don't respond well to bullies,
No.
So.
You kicked his ass.
I did. I literally did. It's embarrassing, but I did. And afterwards, I was just mortified. And of course, I had a witness. Somebody was sitting in the room and watched all this happen. I couldn't deny it.
But everyone had to talk about it.
Oh,
Funny.
yeah.
All right, do you have another one?
The other one was. This is just one of those funny things. So I worked on a film called Made in America. We filmed in Oakland with Ted Danson, Whoopi Goldberg, Will Smith, Nia Long were the leads. And it was fun. It was a great production. I enjoyed meeting all those people. I'd been fans of all of them, especially Whoopi. And Ted Danson is a nice guy, very playful. And so one night I came out to set, and I was bringing per diem. And back in that time, we would give people cash for per diem, which we really don't anymore, but we did. I had a big overcoat on, so they're used to me coming out to give them money, right? So when I would show up, they'd be like, "Oh, it's Friday night, here's the money." And so Ted Danson, who was standing next to Whoopi, came over, and he started going through the pockets of my coat, just in a very playful way. Is it in here?
Now
Is it
he's
here?
mugging you.
Right? And I just giggled, and I said, "No, it's in this satchel," and I gave him his money. But I remember when it happened that Whoopi was glaring at me, and I thought that was very odd because, she kind of wasn't that way, and I thought, oh, she must be having a bad night or whatever. So I didn't think anything more of it. So then I get home from location, and some friends are saying to me, "Well, so is it true about Whoopi and Ted Danson? Is it true?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, "Oh, they're supposed to be like a big item now from your movie." And I said, why do people start rumors like that? Ted Danson had a plane, his personal private plane that he paid for, waiting every night at the airport. Every Friday night, he would get on that airplane and go home to his wife and kids. And I don't understand why people start rumors like that. I just don't get it. Well, the next week, it comes out in the trade papers. I mean, not the trade papers, but in the gossip columns, and it was confirmed that Whoopi and Ted had indeed started having an affair.
I didn't know he was married.
Yes, and
She thought you were getting in the middle of that.
exactly. And then I went, "Oh, that explains the glare." She thought I was flirting with her man.
How funny. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was one of those. And again, that just speaks to my naivete. I really,
You had no idea.
I had no idea. And nor do I think that way. I just don't think that way, And I guess I'm glad I don't. I don't think,
You weren't thinking Ted Danson's after me.
No, I wasn't thinking that, nor was I thinking Ted Danson was after her or anybody else,
Right.
because he's happily married. Why would he, I just...
Right. And we're all at work.
Yes, exactly. I don't... yeah. There's many things, in this industry in particular, I've learned many, many things of which I am naive. And have had to, I have other stories, but I can't tell them.
Oh, those are always the best ones.
I know. But, it's always because you could trace it back to who it was, so I can't.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Did you work with a director who called everyone the C word? Did you work with that guy?
Oh, yes, I did. But not everyone. One person in particular. It was. You want me to tell you that story?
Yeah.
It's a little, it was actually a producer, and really, I have to say, other than his behavior, he's a brilliant producer, and I learned so much from him. I'm very grateful to have worked with him, but he was very old school, and he basically treated people very badly. He had the attitude that he was the smartest person, not only in the room, but on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
And all the rest of us were just like, it was like a Star Trek episode where the uber intelligent people have to deal with the incredibly minute brained humans. It was the attitude of superiority. And so the production designer was a woman, and she had done something that ticked him off early on in pre-production. And from that day forward, he referred to her as the C word, and he would say, "Get the C on the phone for me," or "Get the C into this meeting." We all knew who he meant when he said it, because he called her that for the entire rest of the production.
Gross.
I know, it was gross.
Gross.
Yeah, that was very early in my career. And I always call the time I worked with him like the trial by fire.
Yeah.
Because on top of being just an incredibly strong, difficult personality, he really was brilliant. And, always several steps ahead of everybody. And thankfully, my interactions with him were such that he decided that I was smart enough to be in the room with him, thank God. Because he always treated me with respect. He didn't ever call me names. And if I pointed out to him that I was offended, like if he was talking badly, and I would say, "Okay, that's a little rough for me," he would stop. So I was fortunate enough to have earned a level of respect with him, and I'm grateful for that. Because, again, it's boundaries, right?
Yeah, and it was probably refreshing, because probably no one talked back to him.
Well, exactly. And I think that's part of it. And I didn't ever challenge his authority. I would always make it about me.
Yeah.
Okay,
just enforcing your boundaries.
If this is where we're going, then it's time for me to leave the room. No, sit back down, we'll behave. Right? And again, that's just one of those, for whatever reason, I think maybe because I don't judge them harshly, but I can deal with difficult people. And I can usually find, they don't usually bother me. They may take on other people, but for whatever reason, they're good to me.
Were you born with this confidence?
Yes, I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I was. I was always. That's probably why I get touchy about little girls being called bossy.
Right. You were bossy.
I was. I was always the one who knew what was best, and if you didn't want to do it my way, then I would leave. And
take your toys and go home.
I would, and you'd have to. And they would come back and get me, because I usually did have the best ideas. So they would come, and that builds your confidence.
They wanted your leadership.
They did. They did want my leadership. So. Yeah, obviously everybody goes through times when they're less confident or have their dark moments or their times of doubt. But in general, I feel that I know myself, I like myself, and I'm pretty confident in what I do. I think I'm good at what I am hired to do.
Well, I think there's enough empirical evidence.
Yeah.
You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Ida Lee Henderson for telling us her tales from the trenches. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, and on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features and bios of our guests. Thanks for listening. See you next time.